Hello, everyone. This is Sean Smith, and you are tuned in to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. The podcast that will connect you to resources regionally and nationwide to engage them and you in open, honest discussions so that we can inspire the growth that you need to chase the experience you want. So strap yourself in because here we go. Hello, everyone. This is Sean Smith of the Chasing Your Experience podcast. I am here live at the Buckeye Big Buck Club, their 2025 banquet, and sitting with me is I have the number one female entry for the state of this year, and also number 2 crossbow entry of the year. I have Tricia Lucius here with me. She has shot a monster buck that netted 204 and 2/8. And with her is her husband, Brian Lucius, and her brother, Mike Daring. Ladies, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. How are you guys today?
Doing good.
Great.
Doing great.
Doing good.
I bet you guys are excited to be here today.
Very much so.
So before we dive too deep into this, like, is this your first entry into the Buckeye Big Buck Club?
Yes, it is.
And what a way to do it at 204, right?
Yes.
We went ahead and skipped 140 and just jumped right up to 204.
Wait, hold on.
Once in
Isn't
a
this your
lifetime.
second buck ever?
It's my first entry.
Well, it's your second buck ever, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Not a bad way to kick off your hunting career, huh?
no, not a bad way to start it off at all. He's like, well, hold on a minute. You've got, he's like, this is your second deer. So how long you been hunting then?
This was my first year hunting by myself,
Okay.
but I've hunted with my husband and my father-in-law for the year prior, so about 2.
So for 2 years in, and this is your first year by yourself, so you're coming into the game a little bit later than most. So what inspired you to join now as an adult and avoid it as a kid?
My dad and my brother hunted when I was growing up, and I always wanted to, but I just kind of perceived it as like a father-son guy thing, and I never even asked to go.
Okay.
And then I got married to Brian, and he is an avid hunter, and he got me into it. And then when I shot my first deer was a spike buck. Just the adrenaline rush afterwards, I looked at him, I said, I will never yell at you for hunting again. I totally understand it.
And Mike's sitting here like, I've tried for years to get her to go. And then all of a sudden she meets this guy and goes, that's awesome. So Brian, so you had the opportunity to be with her for her first deer. How was that moment?
That was a interesting experience because we went out our very first time. We sat in a 2-man stand together. First time we went out, we didn't see anything. She said, "Where's all these deer at?" I said, "You aren't going to see deer every time you hunt." Went out a second time, sat in the same stand. Didn't see nothing. "Where's all these deer at?" I told her again, "You don't see deer every time you hunt." So we went the third time, and we were up there a little while, and then all of a sudden she leans over and said, "Hey, there's a deer coming." And at my angle, I couldn't see this deer, and we were whispering back and forth. I said, "Where?" And she said, "Coming over here." Finally, this spike walked up to us about 20 yards away. We're having this full conversation. Should I shoot it? I don't care. It's your tag. What do you think? I don't care. You know, and finally this deer looked up at us, and I just whispered, I said, "Just shoot." And I mean, she shot. Right then, deer spun around, went behind us, and went back through the woods. By this time it got dark, and I said, "Well, you get your first experience of blood tracking a deer." So we followed a blood trail for a little while, and then kind of lost track of it. She kind of started freaking out at first, thought she wasn't going to find her deer. So I said, "Let's backtrack, find the blood at last spot." So we started finding blood again, and I noticed the deer inside the woods. But I told her, I said, "You go ahead and keep looking down on the ground, tracking blood." And she kept saying, "Well, there's some blood, there's some blood, there's some blood." And I was standing behind her. I got my phone out and I was video recording her, and she had no idea. And then she kept looking for, finding blood, and then she stopped and said, "There it is." She went running over that
I remember
deer.
seeing that video. Yeah.
She went running over that deer, and she was all excited, turned around, and she didn't know I was videoing her the whole time. So ever since then, I think just that first deer got her hooked, and it was a good experience. And like she said, the adrenaline rush, and got her into the hunting game.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then next year she goes out and shoots a giant.
Yeah.
And about how that goes.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
This is the one he
Actually-
was hunting.
Yeah. It's better to be lucky than good, I guess.
It's actually her third year hunting, but she did not hunt much at all the second year. So she shot that spike, and she didn't hunt much the second
I
year.
ate my tag the second year.
She let me, I hunt mostly. She nice enough to stay home with the kids. I was hunting the buck we named Brutus. I was hunting him quite a bit. So, but yes, 2 years. She's been hunting, I guess, 3 years, but 2 years going out. But like I said, I was trying to pursue him the second year. So, but yeah, it ended up working out. I've had a lot of people actually ask me if I was upset or jealous that my wife shot that deer. And I've told everybody the truth that I'm excited that she shot it. I put a lot of time and effort in that deer, but when she started getting into it the third year, I said, "You're going to help me with cameras, setting up stands. You got to do the full experience on this." So she was just as much, as I was with that year, getting stuff prepped, cutting shooting lanes, getting cameras set up. And I was very happy for her. I mean, I've always said I'd rather see it on our wall than the neighbor's wall. But
that's it
yes,
right there.
Shooting lanes that resulted in 10 stitches. So I earned that buck.
I was going to say that. Not the stitches part, but I was like, sound like you actually earned it. So congratulations to that. But
And I will say that Brian's done a fantastic job of swallowing that pride and that ego to give his wife credit for that big buck.
He was not mad at all, not even from the beginning.
Well, that's a true gentleman there, and kudos to you
Because
for
I
that.
asked him, I said, "I'm off of work today. Do you want me to stay with the kids? Are you hunting?" And he said, "No, you're off. You go, I'll stay." I said, "Okay." I go, "What about if Bruce comes in?" He goes, "Shoot him."
Shoot him.
it was actually kind
He goes,
of.
I would rather have him on our wall, whether you shoot him or I shoot him. I just want him on our wall.
It was actually kind of a crazy story. The day before we hunted another family farm, she didn't get a chance to shoot a deer the year before because she didn't hunt at all. So I was getting, she goes, "I don't care if it's does, buck, I don't care." So I was having these does come in one of my tree stands pretty much every day, like clockwork. And I ended up sitting in my dad's blind. I wasn't even going to take a bow, but I did. And I sat her in my tree stand. And these deer usually walked across my dad's blind and would work their way out to my tree stand. So the whole plan was for her to go out to shoot one of these 3 does. We get in the blind. She gets in the tree stand like clockwork. These does come in, but they knew something wasn't right, and they were starting to turn. So I thought it's either I shoot a deer or we don't. So I ended up shooting that doe. Yeah, she got a little upset because we were actually hunting for her, but that deer ran, it was either we shoot or I shoot or nobody shoots. So, that was the whole plan, is her to get a doe that day or a deer. And then I was going to hunt the next day at the other farm. It was the 3-day gun season. So she don't hunt with guns. So I was going to take my gun and hunt in that blind. But I told her, I said, I shot a doe the day before. You go ahead and sit in that blind. But I said, make sure you have your hunter orange on. And we've had a lot of people ask if she, shot during gun, this, that. She was hunting during gun season.
Wyandotte County has an early 3-day gun. I shot it the second day of the 3 days.
So she had her orange on with her bow. But she did ask, what if Brutus comes in? Like she said, I said, shoot him. We worked hard for this deer, and like you said, we want to see it on our wall, no matter who gets it, So, she ended up passing on a little buck earlier that day, and I told him that, I've seen that deer as a small deer. Let's just pass him, and then doe come in, and then later on that Brutus come in and shot. I'll leave the rest of the story to her, but it was kind of an interesting story how that all happened, as in we tried to get her that doe, and then I was going to hunt that blind. I ended up shooting a deer, and she ended up going and hunting that blind. But it worked out, obviously, but like I said, I'll let her and them two follow up with the rest of anything they...
Well, absolutely. So, Tricia, here we go. So, tell us the story behind this from your perspective of it. And I guess we'll start off, like, how long have you guys been watching this deer?
3 years.
3 years now? So, you've got 3 years of history with this deer.
I've seen it from like a field away.
Okay.
Because I was like, oh my gosh.
We've named him.
Calf with antlers?
Right?
But yes.
We've named him. So, we now know he's Brutus, right?
Yes.
So, tell me. Leading up to the hunt, like leading up to that day, what, from your perspective, kind of give me this story?
Well, I pulled up to the end of the lane, got my gear on, took off down the lane, got all the way back to the blind, realized I left my arrows on the back of the truck. So I had to walk all the way back up. And I was like, this is going to be a horrible hunt.
Been there before.
This is going to be a horrible hunt, but I'm already here. I might as well go sit. And I'm sitting there and I'm sitting there. And like you said, that small one came in. And I always text him. I was like, I got a 6 point in front of me. Should I shoot? And I get the same answer every time. It's your tag, if that's what you feel comfortable with. And I probably contemplated for a good 40 minutes whether or not to shoot that deer. And I put my phone down. I'm sitting there, and to the right, behind the tree line, I see this massive body, and I'm like, oh, I think that's Brutus. I grab my binoculars, and I'm looking. Like, oh my gosh, it's Brutus. I'm like freaking out. I threw my binoculars down, and I'm getting my bow up on the stand, and I'm ready. And where we had previously made the shooting lane wider, he stopped right in front of it, stood there. A doe came up, stood there with him for, I don't know, a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
She actually came back in through the lane that we made. He surpassed it and walked past. Came back in through the trees and came in from my left.
You're right-handed?
Yes.
That might help with your shot a little bit then, being right-handed, so you can turn that way. Yeah.
He would take like 3 steps and stop. And all I could hear was like he would just bend his rack every which way, hitting every branch coming through. And he would take another 3 steps and stop. And I know when we made that lane, there's a tree. There's 2 trees wide enough where you can get a shot through them. And I set my scope up right there, and I waited for him to hit that spot.
How far was he?
18 yards.
Doesn't get better than that. So
Yes.
all right. So now you got him in your scope. He's 18 yards.
Mm-hmm.
What's going through your mind?
I'm shaking. I'm breathing. I shoved my face mask in my mouth so I wouldn't breathe so loud. And all I could think in my head was, Tricia, do not screw this up. I will never hear the end of it. Do not screw it up. And I shot. I heard the whack. His back legs kicked up, and he took off to my right.
Okay.
And I tried texting I misspelled everything because I was shaking. So I was like, at this point, I'm just going to call. I called him and I said, I just shot Brutus. He goes, what? I said, yeah, I just shot Brutus. And the only thing out of his mouth was, do not leave that blind till I get there.
So, did you watch Brutus fall in front of you, or did you guys have a little bit of tracking to do?
No.
I didn't see him fall, but he was only like 30 yards out. Like he ran through and then ran out and dropped.
Okay.
But I wasn't allowed to leave the blind, so I just stuck my head out, and I couldn't see him from my head sticking out.
I guess that's where she gave me a call and told me that she had just shot.
I called both of them.
Yeah, and then Brian called me, and I had just had family pictures done, and we were out to dinner, maybe 10 miles away from where they were at. And I had always told him, because I'd seen some trail camera pictures from previous years, I said, if you guys ever get that deer, give me a call. I will drop everything that I'm doing, and I will be there to help. So they gave me the call, and we were sitting down. The food hadn't even came out yet, and I'm like, I gotta go. I left my entire family at the restaurant, got in my truck, went home and threw some old clothes on, and headed down the road, and went back to the woods that they were at to help them look for this deer.
Which is a good thing, because it took all three of us to load him up.
Yeah.
We loaded him. It took all three of us just to get him on the back of the four-wheeler, let alone in the back of the truck.
Right.
So
And then he lived the closest, so we actually took him to his barn.
So we didn't know where he was when we all got back to the woods there.
Yeah.
She finally steps out of the blind because we told her, don't even leave that thing until you see us.
Right. And I kept getting.
I was like, the worst thing you can do. The worst thing you can do on a big buck is to jump it, or we didn't know what kind of a shot that
They
was
kept
placed.
asking me, did you make a good shot? Well, where do you think you shot it at? I go, if I had to guess, the lung area.
So I'm going to say she probably
Brian
sat in
found
that
my
blind
arrow.
for a good. It was over an hour and a half, maybe.
Yeah, I'd say hour and a half.
Hour and a half or so.
Yeah,
That's a long
Brian
time.
found my arrow, and there wasn't much blood on it. And he goes, are you sure you shot him? I go, I heard it.
Yeah. Well, we've been in those situations. That's a long time to sit and wait and just
And
wonder
like,
what happened. And
I said he ran
whether he
this
made a
way,
good
and we
shot
all
or
three
not.
took off this way in like a line. And Brian's the one that actually found the most blood trail. And he's like, I followed this deer for how many years? He's going out this way.
Yeah.
So I'm a bow hunter. I bow hunt, and there's a couple key things here. First off, you find this bolt on the ground that was used to shoot the deer, and there's not much blood on it at all. What's your initial thought?
I know I hit it.
What's your initial thought?
To be honest with you, I was taken with her word that she hit it good, hit it in the lungs. I just was going with what she said, but as bow hunters, we check the arrow out. I was just shocked that there was no blood, there was no hair on her broadhead, there was no blood on the shaft, nothing. I had there was just a little speck of blood on a fletching, but I know her bow super fast, being that close. But I was going with what she said. She was there. When I looked at the arrow, I just was shocked there was nothing much on there. So I was trusting her, and when she said she made a good shot.
Yeah. And the whole time he's looking at the arrow, I'm doing like a semicircle around that area just to see if there's any blood laying around the area. And we didn't initially see hardly any blood anywhere. So we just kind of started walking in the direction she said that it took off. And then we ended up picking up some blood, which ended up leading us to find the deer. But he was laying there between a standing cornfield and the edge of the woods there, right in that line. My God, I couldn't believe what I saw when we walked up on it, though.
They were like, oh my God, Tricia, do you know what you just did? And I'm just like, yeah, I just shot a. I just shot a big ass deer.
Shot a big buck. Well, what's the big deal? I don't understand.
And they just kept saying, no, Trish, do you know what you just did? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you don't know what you just did? I go, yeah, I do. And they're like, still, even back at the barn, they kept asking me. I'm like, yeah, shot a deer. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't
Well, I
realize
did.
it was like a record, but
I just
we
remember.
walked up on there. There was bubbles, and I said, "See,
Told you.
I told
Move
you a
on.
long area."
So let me. So who was the first person to put their hands on the deer?
I
I think
I
we
got
had
I think
pictures
we
of
Tricia
let
the
doing
rack.
Tricia,
it.
yeah.
What's that?
picked up the rack.
You're holding this deer. What's going through your head?
I hope Brian's not gonna
I truly, honestly don't know that she completely fathomed how big this deer was.
Yeah.
I didn't.
That's that's understandable,
And how
especially
special
being
that was. I mean, it's not every day you see a deer that big, especially in our area,
I did call my
Wyandotte
dad.
County. You just don't see deer like that.
I did call my dad and say, "Hey, I got something to show you. Go out to Mike's house." My dad goes, "What?" And I go, "Just trust me, you're gonna want to see it." And he walked in the barn. Well, he was already at the barn waiting for me. But he hugged me and he's like, "Tricia, there's people who's been hunting their whole life that'll never see or shoot anything like this."
ever,
Yeah.
Right.
ever.
And that's the part I don't think she comprehended at the time. And we were so excited.
Mhm.
Looking back now, if we'd have just taken some deep breaths and slowed down a little bit, we would have done a much better job of getting more pictures and trying to document the moment. But we were so excited. We just wanted to get it out of the woods and back hanging. So, I field dressed it fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Um,
I got my stuff out of the bag to field dress it because I have never field dressed a deer yet. And Brian's like, "You shot it, you field dress it," and I was getting my stuff out. I was gonna do it. And my brother's like, "No,
Well, I knew
You're
she
getting
wanted.
this
I knew she
mounted.
wanted to shoulder mount it, and I knew
He goes,
there's a special
I don't
way
want you screwing this
Yeah.
up. I'm gonna do it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got it done, and then we had to go up to the road and get the four wheeler and bring it back. And thankfully, I mean, I can't imagine having to drag that damn thing, but Brian took the four wheeler all the way back to where it was, and so all we had to do is load it on the back there, and then rode it up to the road, threw it in the truck, and took it out to my place, hung it up with the tractor, and then we got a few pictures there
Mhm.
in the back of the truck. My dad came out, and it's just a special moment. Yeah.
Just the moment. I can only fathom what the moment was for all three of you or four of you now collectively at that barn to see this deer. No offense, you're still kind of like maybe not really realizing the
I didn't realize
the
it
feat
until
that
the
you
next
have-
day
yeah.
when Outdoor Life called me, and I was like, "Whoa,
Like,
this
okay,
thing's like
there's something going on here.
huge."
Right. Yeah.
So what did you guys estimate this deer to be at? Like, went on the hoof and then once you actually were able to get your hands on it.
Oh gosh,
I would say that deer was good 300.
Pounds.
Weight wise?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
Maybe before field dress, and I would say or close to it, somewhere in there. We never did weigh it. I mean, this is just a guesstimate, but when it takes 3 grown people to load this deer in,
yeah, we were.
I mean, that's just my guess. It might be, somewhere in there before field dress, but even after Mike field dressed the deer, it took literally all 3 of us to get that in the
Mhm.
truck.
Yeah.
That's just my guesstimate, but it's was one of the biggest body deer I've seen. So
Yeah, we were so excited. I think it fell off the four wheeler once on the way up
Yeah.
to the road.
Yeah,
We had to load it back up.
we were doing like the 1, 2, 3. I mean, it was huge.
Yeah. I mean, I've been hunting for around almost 30 years, and I'd never seen a deer that size. And typically when we shoot a deer, it's just let's get it done and process. Let's take care of it and get it where it needs to be. And so we didn't really have the forethought to document the moment, like I said.
Well, when you get excited, that's
Yeah.
there's other things that are more important at that time. I think anybody who's ever been in this position understands exactly what you're saying. So, did you guys estimate this deer, not weight wise, but score wise, to be a 200-inch deer?
I had
At
no
the time,
clue.
I was thinking. I mean, I had some numbers rolling through my head, but it was just a guess. I was around 180, 185 maybe.
that
I
was
did not
probably,
know it would go over 200.
No, I and that's the thing. Judging a deer, I've seen that deer. I've had hundreds and hundreds of pictures of that deer. I figured like Mike. I was actually thinking upper 180s, maybe low 190s, somewhere in there. But when you're trying to judge a deer that has that much mass. It's, kind of tough to judge that.
Yeah, the mass, the height, some of the
yeah.
kickers, and some of the other stuff. Yeah, it's
So yeah, I was right along with Mike. I was thinking upper 180s, around in that area. Yeah.
It's a pretty good guess. I mean, you wasn't too far off. So you get a phone call from Outdoor Life, right?
Yes.
So now all of a sudden the reality's starting to set in of the accomplishment that you've made, right?
Mhm.
So tell me about that. What's going on from there?
They interviewed me over the phone. For months, I had people contact me. Real Tree did an article on their website. Fin, Feather, and Fur did one. Then I did some other podcasts with Buckmasters all the way from Louisiana. I'm like, how does word travel so fast?
Well, now you know what it's like to shoot 200-inch deer.
when you post a picture on the internet, it travels fast.
It travels real fast.
Our local newspapers, the Toledo newspaper, pictures and stuff. I'm just like, jeez.
So you got Buckmasters was your first one to score.
Yes.
So was it a local scorer that did it, or
Toby Hughes.
Toby Hughes? All right. Who went with you? Did you go with her? Were you there?
No.
All right. So you guys go. It's time to put the tape on the deer, right? Tell me what's going through. What either you want to start when they give you the score. Tell me what your thoughts were, or just tell me about what you thought of the process.
Of them scoring it,
Yeah.
I didn't know it was like so in depth. I didn't know how they did it. But I know after they got the score, I don't know if they were trying to keep me in suspense or not, but he immediately took Brian outside and spoke to him. He didn't even tell me the score yet.
Oh, Toby.
His wife Lori's taking me in this other room, slapping his t-shirt on me. And then they're like, hey, they come in and they're like, you willing to do a podcast? And I'm like, what? And then they took pictures and everything. And then it wasn't until the video that they told me the score. He apparently knew.
Toby pulled me outside, like she said, was getting the shirt. And we went outside. He goes, I just want to let you know first that her buck scored 210 and would make her the number one women's semi-regular crossbow world record holder. So obviously pretty exciting. So
Great news.
He
Yeah, I didn't even look
Lori
at the t-shirt.
she said Lori got her a shirt and went inside the house and gave her the shirt.
I didn't read it. If I would have, it said 200 Club on it. I didn't read it.
They asked us, do you want this to go viral, basically? Do you want us to just keep this here, or do you want this news to spread? Because once I post this, it'll go viral, basically. It's going to get your name out, and like she said, next day, the Outdoor Life was trying to get a hold of her and me. But yeah, that was an interesting process.
Very nice people.
Very, very nice. Yeah.
And then, so you got that score of the 210, and then who from the Buckeye Big Buck Club did your score? Do you remember who did the score for you?
Will Ogden.
Okay, Will did it for you.
Yes.
So there's obviously there's a drying period. So the difference is, what did you notice? Was there a little bit of a difference between how the scoring was between Buckmasters and the Buckeye Big Buck Club?
Yes.
All right. What were some of the differences you noticed?
Buckmasters doesn't deduct a whole lot.
Yeah, they don't do deductions.
And we like that.
And we like that, right? We like that gross score, right?
Yeah.
We like that gross score. Trust me, I'm well aware of what gross score difference in I've got one that missed a Buckeye Big Buck Club by 1/8 of an inch. So I know how deductions go.
Oh, well.
But yeah, and that can be a heartbreaker on some things, because some of them, beautiful deer, but you've probably learned by now that the Buckeye Big Buck Club falls more along with the Boone and Crockett, which is also adopted by Pope and Young. That's more about symmetry.
Mm-hmm.
They reward symmetry over a lot over anything else. So yes, deductions can hurt. But if you went from a 210 gross to a 204 and what you say, 2/8?
Yes.
204 and 2/8 with that much antler and only having less than 5 inches of deductions, that's a pretty symmetrical rack. That's a good. I mean, the 200 doesn't matter how you got there. That's a good deer, but that's a pretty symmetrical rack to be only losing 5 inches, about 5 inches on a 200-inch deer.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Especially non-typical.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
that's pretty good. That's really good. So I guess by now you realize the feat, the accomplishment you have. It's starting to sink in a little bit, right? Problem is where do you go from here, right?
I know. So my brother said, "Well, are you done hunting? Because you'll never top that." And I was like, "No, I'm still going to hunt because my family likes to eat."
And that's one of those things I think about with kids too. When I take my kids out, like I want them to shoot decent deer, but there's a pointer to me that says don't let them shoot the biggest one on the property because what is that going to do to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's that going to do to their expectations? And here you are, second buck of your life, and it's. I would be lying if I didn't say that I was a little bit jealous. I would be lying, but I congratulate you.
That's what everybody says.
That's a heck of a deer. But I'm interested.
Family
eats
in you. Deer, so I mean, as long as there's meat in the freezer, I'm still gonna go.
All jokes aside, and all tongue-in-cheek comments aside, we like to chase big antlers. It's kind of part of our culture. It's been commercialized. It's all that. Like it's about that. But when we focus too much on that, we lose sight on what you just said right there. And for most of us, the ultimate reason why we're doing this is to provide sustenance for our family, or food for our family, or just for ourselves, or share that bounty with our friends too. And sometimes we can lose sight of that by trying to chase the next big one. But that's a great comment that you made right there, and very, very humble of you. And I appreciate that comment from you.
You're welcome.
Especially coming off a 200-inch deer as your second deer. Like, now what do I do? But you're like, no, there's still freezer space to fill. Let's get it.
I only shot an 8-point this year. I'm not picky. I will. You know what I mean?
There's nothing wrong with it.
As long as there's a decent body with enough meat to provide my family.
And that's my ruling. It's probably why I don't have one up here. Is like I can't bring myself not to pass up on a buck that I say, yep, that's good enough.
It's a hard thing to do.
It's a hard thing to do. But I'm interested in you. You've been hunting for over 30 years, and your sister, who you've grown up with, who obviously has avoided hunting her entire life until she met Brian, goes out in the second buck that she ever put a bolt through, is now a record for not only the Buckmasters, and their BTR score.
Yep.
But also right now she's for the Buckeye Big Buck Club. She's also the number 1 female hunter entry this year. So, and number 2 crossbow, which was only yours is 5 inches behind number 1. So you were not far from becoming number 1 crossbow in the state.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that, Mr. Mike? I've been hunting my entire life.
I think it's fantastic. I really do. I mean, like I said earlier in the podcast, it is better to be lucky than good. And, you can spend all the time in the world out there, but if the deer aren't there, you're not going to be able to harvest one that big. So thankfully there was one that size on that property that she just had the opportunity, to harvest that day. It was tough seeing it though, knowing the time.
More or less right time, right place.
Knowing the time that I've spent outdoors hunting and never have even seen anything of that caliber. I think my largest is a 167.
Which is nothing to sneeze at. That's a good deer.
But I've never seen it. I mean, that was the biggest one I've ever seen up until the one I seen of hers. So. Yeah, I was just happy and excited for her.
I think everybody would be happy and excited for you. The least the ones that would matter, right? Because like they said, the ones that mind don't matter, but the ones that matter don't mind. So absolutely, that's an amazing feat, and I don't know you. This is the first time I met you, and I'm happy for you because that's a
thank you.
That's a great deer. The 209 that's up there. I was actually at that scoring event. I did an interview with him that day. And I told him, I said, when I seen that, I'm like, when I think of a 200-inch deer, right? If you go look at him, that deer, he's very compact. He's only got like a 15-inch spread, but he's just got a massive amount of points and, a lot of mass to him, right? But I told him, I said, when I think of a 200-inch deer, I'm thinking nice spread, nice everything. Your buck is what I think of when I think of, if I think of 200-inch deer, that's what I think of, right?
Well, it's got everything. I mean, it's got the mass,
Yes.
it's got the width,
Yes.
it's got the height, it's
Yes.
got some character.
Yes, it is a gorgeous, gorgeous buck, and I once again I'm very I'm like I said, I'm happy for you. So as we go to close this thing out, right? Is there anything that we missed that you guys would like to share about the story? I think we talked about leading up to it. We talked about the hunt itself, and we talked about the recovery and everything that's happened after since. So I think we got a pretty good story from you guys. So I'll ask you this, right? So you're a new hunter, and you're also now. Let's be real. The culture is shifting. There are more and more female hunters that are coming out, right?
Mhm.
Moms, daughters, sisters, aunts. They're all coming out and starting to hunt a little bit more. They're not the predominancy. Usually, it's us. It's guys, right? It's the boys. It's the dads.
A lot of women that shot a lot of big ones this year, though.
There is, and that's what they told me. It's like that's a big shift that's happening. Is there's a lot more women that are being involved in this sport, right? So, what is your advice as a hunter? And it could be to any hunter, it could be to female hunters. What is your advice that you would give them, just to be successful?
Patience. I do not have patience, but I need it.
It's
I get
patience.
frustrated if I sit in the morning and I don't see anything. When he wants me to go back out in the evening, I'm just kind of like, nah. I was already out once today, but a lot of times I wouldn't have gotten one if I didn't go out again in the evening.
Yeah.
Just patience.
I think hunting in general just teaches patience.
Yes.
I mean, you're out there. It's nice to get out and about. Is the peace and tranquility of just
But
sitting
like
in the
you
woods.
said, when I sit for so long and I don't see anything, I feel defeated.
Mm-hmm.
I just gotta have patience. They will show up eventually.
Yeah, the year will come for you at some point where it'll be the worst hunting season you've ever had, and you won't see anything, and it just drags on.
I can honestly say I have not sat and not seen anything. It may not have been close enough to shoot, but I have seen something every time.
Which is
besides the first year.
Which is good, which is a good thing, experience. But when those things happen, like you said, you have to have patience, and you have to have a little bit of faith to know that the next 10 seconds, that next 200 could walk past you if you're not. So you got to be ready for that no matter what. And that's a hard thing to do. You've hunted for 30 plus years. How long you been in it?
96, I think, is when I first started hunting.
So you're going on 29 years, so approaching that 30-year mark. There comes a point in time, like you said, if you don't see anything, it gets really frustrating. And we've all been there. We've had those week-long hunts. We've had rut hunts that we wish we never even got out of bed for because just nothing happened. But you have to have that faith and that belief that the next 10 seconds, which is all it takes, that next one is going to walk past you, and truly believe in that. So
yeah, I never knew they were so quiet when they walked.
you want to know something else that's shocking, that's quiet when they want to be, is elk.
You know what's really loud? Squirrels.
Yes. Squirrels are like a 400 pound deer, but yet the 300-pound deer comes through and it's quiet as a church mouse.
Yeah.
Yep.
I hear squirrels and I think it's a deer, and I turn around every time it's a squirrel.
Me too.
But once again, like she said, patience.
Patience.
Yeah.
Patience is a virtue.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time to sit down and talk to us. Is there anything else that you two might have in closing as words of advice or anything? Maybe bringing somebody new to the sport, anything like that?
I'm going to say don't give up. I did not get my first deer for probably the first 6 or 7 years of hunting. Now, a lot of people, after hunting that long and not getting one, they're going to get out of the sport. They're going to quit. They're going to get out of it. I just enjoyed being out there, enjoyed being outdoors. Like I said, it was frustrating seeing all your friends shooting deer, and you're not. You're spending the time, you're hunting. But that would be my advice. Don't give up. Just because you either didn't shoot a deer this year or last year or the year before, stick with it. You just keep pursuing it. It's more than just shooting a deer. It's just getting out there, getting away from work, and things like that. Kind of just letting your mind, kind of get back to normal. So
Yeah.
just enjoy the time, being away from everything, enjoying nature. And like she said, we do it to feed the family. But like I said, just don't give up.
Yeah.
If you don't get one this year, you don't get one next year, just keep pursuing. It's just right place, right time. That would be my advice.
And I don't think I could have said any better. Mike, what about you, my man?
I mean, I do it for the reasons you just said there, just to decompress from a long, stressful day. We're all in the hubbub of the busy lifestyle, but it is nice to get out there and just take some deep breaths, enjoy nature, and then kind of see what happens. And it's just that time away from reality, I guess.
Absolutely. And you guys touched on a good point, because a lot of us get caught up in the rat race of what we think success is, and success is coming home with a harvest. Now, it's great. It's a great caveat, but just to find the success in just that experience of getting out there and getting that hard reset that a lot of us need, and a lot of us don't allow ourselves to get. Because of whatever our work life is, or our family life. I understand those things are responsibilities and things, but in the end of the day, like an empty well gives no water. If we don't take the time to take care of ourselves and get that hard reset, we got nothing left to give to everything else that's important. So absolutely, there's more to it than just that success of coming home with the harvest or a 200-inch deer. But whatever, who am I to say? Well, I thank you guys for your time, and I really congratulations to you.
Thank you.
That's an amazing deer, and for Brian and Mike, I wish you guys luck, and hopefully we'll be talking to you guys about 200-inch deer at some point in time.
Sounds good.
So once again, thank you guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
Yep.
Wow, what an amazing story there with Tricia and her husband Brian and her brother Mike, as we sat and listened to her successful harvest of a 204-inch monster buck here in Ohio. So I kind of forgot to do an outro with them. I was too excited to get up to do photos and stuff. So this is why we're here back in the studio. So get the outro out right now. Anyways, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so much for taking time out of your day to sit and listen to our podcast. And we definitely want to thank Tricia, Brian, and Mike to take the time out to come and sit down and tell the story about an absolute monster buck out of the north part of the state. And ladies and gentlemen, we know that your time is very, very valuable, and we don't take that lightly when you take that moment of your day to sit and listen to our podcast. With that, we really hope that you just take a little bit of extra time and leave us a review on the podcast platform that you're listening to this podcast on, and also share this with your friends. But with all that said, it is time to close this episode out. So listeners, as you're out there chasing the experience that you want, may you have the courage to fail, but yet have the humility to learn. And as always, until our experiences cross paths again, we hope that you stay safe out there, and God bless you. Thank you for listening to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. Before you go, don't forget to leave us a review and follow the show on the podcast platform of your choice. Are you hungry for more Country Fried Outdoors? Then follow us on Instagram at Country Fried Outdoors, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Country Fried Outdoor Productions.